Driving under the influence turns a simple trip into a deadly gamble. One wrong choice behind the wheel can end lives in seconds. In this video, we uncover 6 real stories of DUI crashes so horrifying they shocked entire communities. These are not accidents. They are moments of carelessness that left behind death, pain, and questions that can never be answered. It was May 14th, 1988, a Saturday night in Kentucky. A church youth group from Radcliffe had just finished a day at Kings Island Amusement Park in Ohio. The trip had been filled with rides, laughter, and exhaustion. On the way home, the bus carried 67 people, most of them children and teenagers from military families stationed at Fort Knox. Among them was 10-year-old Patty Nunnally, eager to tell her mom about her adventure. But Patty never made it home. Neither did 26 others. The bus was heading south on Interstate 71 near Carrollton when a 34-year-old man named Larry Mahoney drove his pickup the wrong way. He was under the influence, with a blood alcohol level of 0.24, more than twice the legal limit at that time. At about 11 p.m., his truck slammed head-on into the bus. The crash crushed the front of the bus, but worse was yet to come. The fuel tank ruptured, and flames spread quickly through the cabin. The front exit was blocked by wreckage, while the rear door was partially blocked by coolers and supplies. With only a narrow escape route, dozens were trapped. Smoke and fire filled the bus within seconds. People scrambled to get out, but the toxic fumes and spreading flames left little time. In the end, 27 people, 24 children and 3 adults, lost their lives. One of the adults was chaperone Chuck Kidda. His wife later learned that he had been standing near the front stairwell when the collision happened. He did not survive. Among the children who died was Patty Nunnally. Investigators later determined she likely passed from inhaling the smoke and fumes. For her mother, Carolyn, that detail was unbearable. Survivors described scenes of chaos and terror. For those who escaped, the trauma never left them. And for Radcliffe, the grief was overwhelming. When Carolyn learned her daughter was involved, her husband asked for Patty's dental records. She later said she knew at that moment that Patty would not be coming home. Mahoney was charged with 27 counts of manslaughter, 16 counts of assault, and 27 counts of wanton endangerment. He was sentenced to 16 years but was released after serving only 9.5. Families were outraged. The crash did spark change. School bus safety standards were updated, stronger fuel tanks, more emergency exits, and less flammable seats. Drunk driving laws were also strengthened nationwide, lowering the blood alcohol limit to 0.08 by 2004. But for Carolyn, the changes weren't enough. She joined Mothers Against Drunk Driving just weeks after the crash, and later became its national president, speaking tirelessly about the dangers of impaired driving. Over the years, alcohol-related deaths dropped significantly, from more than 18,000 in 1988 to just over 10,000 by 2016. Yet, the problem never disappeared. By 2018, drunk driving had claimed more than 375,000 lives since the Carrollton crash. For others, like Janet Kidda Hancock, the tragedy repeated itself. She lost her husband Chuck in the crash, and years later, her son Charlie was also killed by an impaired driver. She said the pain was unbearable, knowing exactly how long it takes to recover from such loss. The Carrollton crash remains the deadliest drunk driving crash in U.S. history. For survivors and families, the pain has never faded. They continue to share their stories, determined to keep the memory alive and to prevent others from going through the same heartbreak. It was July 26, 2009, in New York. 36-year-old Diane Schuler was driving her red 2003 Ford Windstar minivan on the New York Thruway. Inside were 5 children, her 2 kids, her 5-year-old son and 2-year-old daughter, and her brother's 3 daughters, 8-year-old Emma, 7-year-old Allison, and 5-year-old Kate. They had just spent the weekend camping at Hunter Lake Campground in Parksville, New York, and were on their way home to West Babylon around 9:30 a.m. Diane's husband, Daniel, followed behind in another car with their dog. Everything seemed normal at first. They stopped at McDonald's for food and later at a Sunoco gas station. Staff members later confirmed that Diane appeared fine, speaking clearly, ordering food, and showing no signs of being unwell. But after leaving the gas station, things began to change. Diane called her brother Warren and said they were delayed in traffic, though no one else on the road saw any backup. Instead, witnesses reported her minivan swerving between lanes, tailgating cars, and even pulling over as she vomited on the side of the road. By 11:37 a.m., Diane called Warren again, saying there would be more delays. Shortly after, more drivers reported seeing her vehicle weaving across lanes. Around 12:58 p.m., Warren's daughter Emma called him from the van. The 8-year-old said Aunt Diane was struggling to see and talking unclearly. Alarmed, Warren told Diane to stop and wait for him. He rushed to meet her, but by the time he got there, they were gone. Minutes later, 911 calls began flooding in. At 1:33 p.m., 2 callers reported a red minivan going the wrong way up an exit ramp on the Taconic State Parkway. 4 more calls quickly followed. Diane's van was now heading south in the northbound lanes at speeds between 75 and 85 miles per hour. For the next 1.7 miles, drivers swerved desperately to avoid her. At 1:35 p.m., tragedy struck. Diane's minivan collided head-on with a Chevrolet Trailblazer driven by 81-year-old Michael Bastardi. The impact shoved his SUV into another vehicle, a Chevrolet Tracker. In less than 3 minutes, 8 lives were lost. Diane, her daughter, and 2 nieces died instantly. Michael, his son Guy, and their friend Dan Longo were also killed. Diane's 5-year-old son Brian was the only survivor from the van, though he suffered serious injuries. His cousin later passed away at the hospital. First responders found the wreckage and something disturbing near the driver's side door, a broken bottle of vodka. Toxicology reports confirmed Diane's blood alcohol content was 0.19%, over twice the legal limit. Traces of marijuana were also present, showing recent use. This explained her erratic driving and the symptoms her niece described. Yet, Diane's family strongly denied she had been intoxicated. Daniel insisted she was a devoted mother and suggested a medical emergency instead. He even funded a second autopsy, but the results confirmed the first. No stroke, heart attack, or medical condition had caused the crash. The public was divided. Authorities labeled the event a case of negligent driving, while Daniel continued to believe something else was to blame. The crash was New York's deadliest since 1904, leaving the community shocked. In response, the state passed the Child Passenger Protection Act, making it a felony to drive impaired with a child in the car. But for the Schuler and Bastardi families, no law could erase the pain. The questions around Diane's final hours remain unresolved, leaving a mystery that still lingers more than a decade later. It was September 26, 2017, on the 605 freeway in Whittier, California. That night, a crash took place that destroyed an entire family. 3 lives were lost instantly, all because of the reckless decision of someone who was supposed to protect the public. The driver responsible was 27-year-old Edgar Verduzco, an off-duty Los Angeles police officer. He was behind the wheel of his 2016 Chevrolet Camaro, traveling at nearly 150 miles per hour. He had been drinking earlier in the night, and that choice set the stage for what was about to happen. At around 10:15 p.m., Verduzco slammed into a 2014 Nissan carrying the Davila family, along with a 2010 Toyota Scion. The impact forced the Nissan, driven by 60-year-old Mario Davila, with his wife Maribel, 52, and their 19-year-old son, Oscar, inside, into the center divider. Within seconds, the car caught fire. The family was trapped, and before first responders could arrive, the flames consumed the vehicle. None of them survived. The Scion, driven by a woman named Burley Alvarado, was also struck, though she suffered only minor injuries. Just hours before the crash, Verduzco had posted a video on Instagram with the hashtag "Don't Drink and Drive." It showed a cartoon character warning about the dangers of drinking and driving, yet in the background of his own video, beer glasses were clearly visible. The tragedy hit the Davila family hard. Mario and Maribel were parents of 4 children. That night, they had been on their way to pick up their son David from a medical school interview. Waiting for them, David never could have imagined he would instead be told his parents and younger brother were gone. Oscar, only 19 years old, had recently graduated from John W. North High School and was a student at UC Riverside. He was known for his kind nature, love for music, and dedication to his church. His life was just beginning. The crash scene itself was horrific. The Nissan was engulfed in flames, and firefighters arriving at the site could do nothing to save the Davilas. Their remains were burned beyond recognition. Meanwhile, Verduzco survived. He suffered only a broken nose. Police immediately arrested him at the scene. Though no breathalyzer was performed, his condition and the social media posts from earlier that night made it clear he had been drinking before getting behind the wheel. The California Highway Patrol confirmed he had been driving in the carpool lane when he rear-ended the Nissan. His reckless speed left no chance to avoid the crash. The surviving Davila children were left to process the unbearable loss of both parents and their younger brother in one night. For them, the pain was immeasurable. Verduzco was later charged with 3 counts of second-degree murder, along with charges of driving under the influence causing injury. He pled guilty. On July 18, 2025, he was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison for the deaths of Mario, Maribel, and Oscar. He also received an additional 3-year sentence for driving under the influence, to be served at the same time. Justice was served, but it could not undo what had happened. The Davila family's future was taken in a matter of seconds. For their surviving children, the loss would remain with them forever. It was June 19, 2011, in Pennsylvania. Ryan Dunn, best known from MTV's Jackass, was out with friends at Barnaby's Westchester bar. Dunn, 34 years old, had built his career on extreme stunts and had been a part of the entertainment world for more than a decade. That night, he spent hours drinking and laughing with friends, including fellow Jackass star Bam Margera and production assistant Zachary Hartwell. But as the night went on, a decision would lead to tragedy. Between 10:30 p.m. and 2:10 a.m., Dunn consumed at least 3 beers and 3 shots. Around 2:30 a.m., Dunn and Hartwell left the bar in Dunn's Porsche 911 GT3, a sports car capable of reaching nearly 190 miles per hour. They drove down Route 322 in West Goshen Township, where investigators later determined Dunn was driving at speeds between 130 and 140 miles per hour, far beyond the posted limit of 55 miles per hour. The car veered off the road, tore through a guardrail, and hit a tree before bursting into flames. The impact was so severe that the car split apart. Both Dunn and Hartwell were killed instantly. Dunn's body was identified through his tattoos because of the extent of the fire. West Goshen Police Chief Michael Carroll, who had seen many fatal crashes, described this as one of the worst wrecks he had ever witnessed. Ryan Dunn's story began years earlier. He was born on June 11, 1977, in Medina, Ohio, but later moved to Westchester, Pennsylvania, where he became close friends with Bam Margera. Together, they filmed stunts that became part of the CKY series, which gained a cult following. Their work caught the attention of Johnny Knoxville, leading to the creation of Jackass in 2000. Dunn became a core member of the group, known for his reckless style and willingness to take on extreme challenges. Fans called him the random hero. He pulled off unforgettable stunts, like diving into raw sewage and, in Jackass, the movie, hiding a toy car in his body. But life off camera wasn't always easy. In 2006, a blood clot from a stunt sent him to the hospital. He was later diagnosed with Lyme disease, which left him struggling for years. For a time, he distanced himself from friends, but by 2010, he had rejoined the crew for Jackass 3D. Then came the night of June 20th, 2011. Dunn texted Margera before the crash, saying he would meet him later, but first was stopping for a beer. He never made it. Both he and Hartwell were later ruled to have died from blunt force and burns. Toxicology reports revealed Dunn's blood alcohol level was 0.196, over twice the legal limit. This detail drew backlash. Film critic Roger Ebert tweeted, "Friends don't let jackasses drink and drive," sparking anger among fans and Dunn's family. In 2012, Hartwell's parents filed a lawsuit against Dunn's estate and the bar, claiming both were responsible for their son's death. The case was settled privately. Dunn's death devastated his family, friends, and fans. Bam Margera broke down in interviews, saying he lost his best friend. Johnny Knoxville tweeted that he had lost a brother. Steve-O, Preston Lacey, and many others shared their grief. Bam Margera's mother said she felt as though she had lost one of her own sons. Ryan Dunn left behind a legacy built on daring stunts, laughter, and risk-taking. His death was sudden and tragic, but those who knew him remember the joy, humor, and loyalty he brought into their lives. It was Saturday, September 7th, 2024, around 8:30 p.m. in Apache Junction, Arizona. The Elks Lodge number 2349, a local social club, was crowded with people enjoying food, drinks, and conversation. The atmosphere was relaxed but lively. What was supposed to be a normal Saturday night quickly turned into chaos. At the center of it was 73-year-old Thomas Edward Kane. He had been inside the lodge for some time before heading to his truck. According to authorities, he had been drinking, though the exact level was still under investigation. What happened next shocked everyone. Instead of safely driving out of the parking lot, Kane's truck accelerated and crashed straight through the front entrance. The vehicle plowed into the building, slamming into tables where people were sitting. Drinks splashed onto the windshield, chairs were knocked over, and patrons were thrown across the room. In an instant, the social gathering became a scene of injury and panic. Screams filled the lodge as people tried to make sense of what happened. Some were badly hurt, others in shock. A patron quickly called 911, and within minutes, Apache Junction police and emergency responders arrived. 10 people were rushed to hospitals with injuries ranging from cuts to broken bones. One person was in critical but stable condition, slowly improving. 15 others were treated on site, and at least 5 more drove themselves to local hospitals. In total, more than 24 people were hurt. Despite the destruction, no one lost their life. The lodge, which held around 30 people at the time, was now filled with first responders. Ambulances and medical staff worked quickly to treat victims while police began their investigation. Kane was still at the scene and was taken into custody. He was charged with 12 counts of aggravated assault, 17 counts of endangerment, and driving under the influence. Arizona law allows that charge even if blood alcohol content is below the legal limit of 0.08%, as long as impairment is clear. Surveillance cameras inside the lodge captured the truck smashing through the entrance, sending tables and chairs flying. The video, while distressing, provided crucial evidence of how sudden and violent the crash was. Police reminded the public how alcohol impairs judgment and reaction time. In this case, dozens of people were injured, but the outcome could have been far worse. Kane's actions left victims with both physical injuries and emotional scars. Investigators also worked with the Arizona Department of Liquor Licenses and Control to determine if alcohol served at the lodge contributed. Meanwhile, the city of Apache Junction expressed sympathy and support for victims and their families. Kane's case remained open, with pending blood test results that could bring further charges. The Elks Lodge issued a statement, offering support, thanking first responders, and providing crisis hotlines for those needing support. For those inside that night, the memory of a truck crashing into their gathering will never fade. Healing would take time, both physically and emotionally. The crash not only shook the community, but also showed how one reckless decision can affect dozens of lives. It was the early morning of July 31st, 2022, in Strongsville, Ohio. 17-year-old high school student Mackenzie Sharilla was driving her 2018 Toyota Camry at a dangerously high speed. The car accelerated past 100 miles per hour before slamming into a brick building. The crash took the lives of two young men and left Mackenzie with severe injuries. Her boyfriend, 20-year-old Dominic Russo, and their friend, 19-year-old Davian Flanagan, were declared dead at the scene. Mackenzie survived, but unconscious. What followed was an investigation, a public trial, and a conviction that would divide opinion and leave families broken. Dominic had been dating Mackenzie for about 4 years. Though they seemed close, friends and family described their relationship as unstable. Dominic's mother, Christine, said it had grown especially tense in the months before the crash. Arguments were common, and Mackenzie had become possessive. On the night of the incident, Mackenzie, Dominic, and Davian went to a graduation party at a friend's house around 10:15 p.m. They stayed less than an hour before heading to another gathering. There, they listened to music, talked, and smoked marijuana. A friend, Paul Burlinghouse, later said that when he went to bed around midnight, things seemed calm. By 5:30 a.m., they left. Minutes later, Mackenzie's car sped toward a building. Investigators found that she never braked. The impact killed Dominic and Davian instantly. Mackenzie was rushed to the hospital, but it was too late to save the others. As investigators looked deeper, troubling details surfaced. Weeks earlier, Mackenzie had allegedly threatened to crash the car during an argument with Dominic. He once called his mother, saying he felt unsafe. A family friend testified they overheard Mackenzie say, "I will crash this car right now." Just 2 weeks before the tragedy, she also threatened to damage Dominic's property after he refused to let her inside his home. Forensic analysis confirmed that the accelerator had been fully pressed and no brakes were applied. Security footage showed the car moving directly toward the wall without swerving. Investigators concluded the crash was deliberate. They also discovered Mackenzie had been under the influence of marijuana and had psychedelic mushrooms in her possession. In the months that followed, Mackenzie posted tributes online, calling Dominic her soulmate. She claimed to have no memory of the crash and apologized to the victims' families. But Dominic's mother said her son and Davian were shown no mercy that morning and called for the harshest sentence. The trial began in 2023. Prosecutors argued Mackenzie intentionally caused the crash to end her troubled relationship with Dominic. Videos and testimony showed a pattern of threats and destructive behavior. The defense argued she may have suffered a medical episode, and that stress from the breakup contributed to her actions. Judge Nancy Margaret Russo rejected the defense. She said Mackenzie carried out her actions with precision and called her a literal hell on wheels. Mackenzie was found guilty on 12 charges, including homicide, assault, and drug possession. She was sentenced to 2 concurrent 15-year-to-life terms, with parole possible after 15 years. Her driver's license was permanently revoked. Her parents have continued to appeal, claiming the crash was not intentional. But the victims' families believe justice requires she remain in prison. As of 2025, Mackenzie remains incarcerated, while appeals continue. For Dominic and Davian's families, the pain of losing them will never fade.